أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إننا كنا من الظالمين ربنا زدنا علما رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So last time we talked about those ideas. Today I want to once again bring forth the conversation that happened between Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun. And this conversation that happened in Surah Taha, the conversation is very concise. Because in that conversation, Fir'aun and Musa are talking about Rabb. But when you go to Surah Shu'ara, the conversation has much more added components. Now Fir'aun is being explained by Musa alayhi salam, what is Rabbul Alameen? So the answers are very different. And the question is very different. And the length of the question and answers is very different. So when the conversation took place between these two people, many things were discussed. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduced things as needed in different places in the Quran. So when we are reading this conversation, we now need to bring things together. So I'm going to once again bring the concept of Rabb. And then when we talk about Rabbul Alameen, I'm going to bring those ayahs and bring the connection back to the first conversation. So when Musa alayhi salam came to Fir'aun, he came with a very, very clear message in Surah Taha. He said that we have come to you as the Rasul, as the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَأَرْسِلْ مَعَنَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل فَأَرْسِلْ مَعَنَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل. So please send with us the children of Israel that you're governing. And then, do not punish them. وَلَا تُعَذِّبْهُمْ. قَدْ جِئْنَاكَ بِآيَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكَ. We have come to you with the clear signs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he uses the word Rabbik, your Rabb. Now that was the biggest thunderstorm strike on his head. Because to him, he does not have a Rabb. Because he used to say, Ana Rabbukum al-A'la, I am the highest and the most supreme Rabb. So when he heard all this conversation from Musa alayhi salam, and Musa alayhi salam said, we received the revelation from your Rabb, who said, if you do not follow me, and you die that way, I'll punish you. So after listening to all this, he said, وَمَنْ رَبُّكُمَا يَا Musa? Musa, who is this Rabb that you're talking about? That you're talking in front of me about the Rabb who will punish me when I'm the supreme Rabb. Then Musa a.s. explained to Fir'aun here, what is Rabb? He said, رَبُّنَا الَّذِي. Now, your Rabb and my Rabb. رَبُّنَا الَّذِي أَعْطَى كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. He is the one who gives everything. أَعْطَى كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. And then what does he do? خَلَقَهُ. He creates it and then ثُمَّ هَدَى. He guides it. So he does not provides means, he creates it, sustains it, and provides its means to excel in this life. This is the Rabb I'm talking about, Fir'aun. And then the conversation went on other aspects in Surah Taha. The other aspects are not being talked about, which are talked about in Surah Shu'ara, which we're going to look at later on. So this is a conversation I want you to keep at the back of your mind, because we are still talking about the Rabb, which sparked the thought process of Fir'aun. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He creates this universe, He creates beings in this universe. So for every being, He provides means of sustenance. And whatever the needs of that particular being, He provides those sustenance means. So when He provides guidance to us as human beings, there are 5 different types of guidance that He provides. One is a natural guidance, which comes naturally. For example, when a baby is born, the baby has already learned certain ways of living, like I need to cry to express myself, and I need to laugh to express myself, and where should I go to find my food, how to suck that food. It naturally knows these things. That's a natural guidance Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives. Also to the animals, when a new baby is born of an animal which is a milk-giving animal, nursing animal, the baby knows exactly where to find. Nobody is there to teach, come here. So it's not even a human being. So this is natural guidance that is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then there is a sensory guidance. So there are senses given to you by which you get your guidance. Smell, taste, touch, hear, see. Those are some other guidance which are given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a lot of us get our guidance from there. For example, animal, be it a little baby of an animal, it has this idea that if I see this entity, this is something to be feared of. But if I see this entity, is this not something to be feared of? It sees a huge tree, but it goes and eats off the tree. But a lion is much smaller, but runs away. So it has this instinct in it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides it right from the beginning, what to do, what not to do. And then there's a rational thought process that a person is capable of thinking. And every being is capable of thinking. It is a thought process of hudhud that let the hudhud go and do a surveillance of a queen and saw the queen and the people worshipping sun instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then come back to Sulaiman alayhi salam and reveal that information. That is a very clear proof of they having rationality. We are not able to understand their rationality. Sulaiman alayhi salam, by the mercy of Allah, was able to get that information out of them. So many times, animals converse with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The books are filled with the incidents. So they do have rational capabilities, and they do have a learning capability. They do have an intellect. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us another guidance, which is through heart. So if you notice, a lot of the people are guided, a lot of the people are not guided. So the people who are not guided, it has just not been convincing enough for their hearts to believe in it. So there's some kind of a guidance instilled in there. We're going to talk a little bit more about these things. Then there is another guidance which only comes through the revelations from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that when He gives revelations, and that's given to the prophets. Now we'll talk a little bit about the first one. And I'm going to go back to my conversation earlier on, that when Fir'aun's Musa conversation took place, Musa alayhi salam said, رَبُّنَا الَّذِي أَعْطَى كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلْقَهُ ثُمَّ هَدَى. This is the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which gives everything to every being and then guides it. So this is your natural instinct, your natural guidance. And when we talk about the other guidance, like sensory guidance, this is also stated in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Bani Israel says, Inna sam'a, your hearing capability. Wal basara, your seeing capability. Wal fu'ad, your insight capabilities, your heart capabilities, your feelings, your guidance. Kullu ulaika kana anhu mas'ula. He will going to ask you about all of these things on the Day of Judgment. Why did you had ill feelings for your brother when I was the one who gave him all the blessings? So indirectly, were you feeling bad for me that why I gave him and not gave you this? Were you questioning me? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept control over these things while He grants these things to us. Now notice another ayah in the Quran, Surah Al-Mulk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةِ. I've given you thinking, hearing, seeing, and now notice the word here, afida. What was the word in the first ayah? We have given you fu'ad. Fu'ad and afida. Afida is usually pronounced as hearts, and fu'ad is a heart. So when ulama go in detail, fu'ad, what do you mean? A person has a single heart, does not have hearts. So now it is being explained as a combination of your intellect, which is thinking capability over here, and a thinking capability over here. So it's a combination of the two, your brain and your heart, which combine to make decisions. So now you have come to the conclusion that yes, I in all my senses and willfully have made this decision. So where does the will come from? This is where the will come from. This is where you're convinced. And this is where you're thinking. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used both those terminologies. Moving on to the intelligence of the human mind, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in several places said, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Don't you guys think? أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ. Don't you guys reflect? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is constantly telling this human race and the race of the jinn that you must think, you must reflect. So to bring that intelligence back in action, do not be like those people who completely shut off themselves and close out themselves from the rest of this world saying, oh, what am I going to do in this world? The world is supposed to die out eventually. And they don't progress. They don't excel. If that would have been the case, the Prophet Muhammad would have clearly said, all the Sahaba, leave all the worldly work, sit in the masjid, we're going to pray all day. They were regular people going out in the fields, working in their own fields, and also fulfilling other obligations, and excelling in their own fields. Now there were Sahaba who reported very few hadith, and people questioned them. You used to live in Medina, and you've only narrated so little amount of hadith. Why? Is it because I was so busy in my business? I used to be out of Medina most of the time. I used to travel with the caravans. So I was living in Medina, but I was not able to report enough because I was not there most of the time. So there were certain situations, if that would not have been the case, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would have said, okay, leave the economics, just concentrate on the masjid. That probably was not the case. People were excelling and progressing. In fact, we talked about this in the past. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, inside the Masjid al-Nabawi, made sure that there were people specializing in different fields. There were people who were specializing in the art of reading and writing and communication. There are people who were specializing in the field of economics. We have also learned that Bilal radiallahu ta'ala anhu was the personal treasurer of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who would keep track of his yearly expenses. So Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had his yearly expenses spelled out, because he had 9 households to provide sustenance that needed to be, he had to take care of the means of money coming in and the distribution taking place. So a lot of those things were getting involved in the city of Medina while the people were progressing, and education was lacking. So they needed to be educated first. So the economics were being looked at, the judicial system was being looked at, the law enforcement was being looked at, and at the same time you were looking at army, you were looking at all these scholars, intellectuals. Everything was grooming, but was in its initial stage. Very initial stage. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you got to use your thinking capabilities. And then, in another place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Kahf, talking about Qadri alayhi salam, آتَيْنَاهُ رَحْمَةً مِّنْ عِنْدِنَا وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِنْ لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. This Qadri as an individual, we gave him a special kind of a knowledge. That's why some of the ulama has given a terminology of ilmul ladunni, because the Quran says min ladunna ilma. This was a special ilm that we have bestowed on him that was not given to Moses. So when Moses came in contact with Qadri, he was surprised. When Qadri performed certain actions which were totally against the laws brought by Moses. You cannot break somebody's property. You cannot kill an innocent soul. You cannot fix somebody's stuff who is being so mean to you. Why would you do that? But then Qadri explained to him the rationale. And that was coming from a totally different perspective. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes gives special ilm to certain people. Now there are other ayahs in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf alayhi salam's brother threw him in the well. And then he's being taken out by the people, sold in Egypt. And now notice, all his communication with his dad is cut off. But he's the prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes care of his prophets himself specially. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. We provide Yusuf a sustenance in this world when all relationships were cut off. وَلِنُعَلِّمَهُ مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. And we taught him how to interpret the dreams. We taught him. Nobody else did, because he had nobody to learn from. And O people who you believe, and O people who you don't believe, وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَى أَمْرِهِ. It is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are you? How can you say these things? Oh, this is hopeless. How could this happen? وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَى أَمْرِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala controls everything. You may cut off all means from somebody, but if he wants to sustain, he'll sustain. Here's a clear example for us. 3 years, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with his family was cut off from the rest of the world. No trade, no marriages, no communication, right in Makkah. By his own kinsmen, by his own family. Were they able to kill that movement? No. 10 years down, not even 10 years down the road, not even 10 years down the road, the same people were sitting on the table and signing treaty with the people that they forced to live in a valley. Same people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes people through the stages. And we are only looking at certain things, only what's on the face value. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when Yusuf was grown up, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ, when he grew up as a full man, أَشُدَّهُ آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا, we gave him wisdom and we gave him knowledge. We gave him special. Now, in the house of Aziz, everybody was there, but Yusuf excelled. Yusuf progressed. Yusuf helped his master make certain decisions. There's a story in Torah. It's not reported in the Quran, that when his master was receiving a horse from one of the men, so the guy says, okay, it basically will going to cost this much money. Here is a weight. You put as much money as the weight can bear, and then you make a payment. So Aziz put as much gold coins on the other side, but then Yusuf realized when both things were lifted, the balance did not come out balanced. It was slightly tipped off. He said to his master, Aziz, something is wrong with this balance. Check it out. The guy is ripping you off. And Aziz checked it. And yes, the guy was trying to rip off Aziz. So there were so many other people standing when the deal was taking place, but Yusuf was given this special intelligence to look at things and analyze and come to certain conclusions and help people out. So over the period of time when he lived in the house of the Aziz, very slowly and gradually he progressed, and the entire household and all the servants were under the command of Yusuf. And how did he get that when no other school system was available? He was just like anybody else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا, I gave him the wisdom and I gave him the knowledge. Look at Moses. When Musa alayhi salam is getting his revelation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Musa alayhi salam in Surah Taha, وَأَنَا اخْتَرْتُكَ, I chose you, Moses. I chose you. Among so many children of Israel who were getting slaughtered by the army of Pharaoh, I made a choice to pick you. وَأَنَا اخْتَرْتُكَ فَاسْتَمِعْ لِمَا يُوحَى, whatever I reveal to you, listen to it attentively. And later on down the road, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now revealing to Moses how I saved you. وَأَلْقَيْتُ عَلَيْكَ مُحَبَّةً مِنِّي, I gave you special love from me, not from regular humans. Your enemy, now this is a special love, your enemy who was to kill you actually became your guardian. And you lived in that enemy's house and was taken care by that enemy's wife. You grew up in the palace as his own son, like a crown prince, like a prince. وَأَلْقَيْتُ عَلَيْكَ مَحَبَّةً مِنِّي وَلِتُصْنَعَ عَلَىٰ عَيْنِي, and I kept you under my guidance alone. So I bring you like I wanted to bring you. Because later on in your life, you have to lead these 600,000 children of Israel. If you don't get this kind of a treatment and training how to live like a king and how to rule a country in the capacity of the Pharaoh of Egypt, how are you going to lead these guys? They're messed up people. They were slaves. Their thought process is totally changed than a free man. So that's why I kept you the way I kept you. Then I put you in a hardship for 10 years. It was a big change for you that you lived a life of a shepherd. So later on in your life, when you go through that kind of a lifestyle, you have learned the leadership skills. Now you learn the social skills and how to control individuals. You bring the two things together and now you rule these people. And of course, you will going to be guided by me because وَاصْطَنَعْتُكَ لِنَفْسِي, I created you for me. I created you just for me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Luqman, who's not even a prophet. He's a very noble man, but he's a wise man. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when introduces him in the Quran, says, وَلَقَدْ indeed آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةِ. I gave him the wisdom. Among all the slaves, Luqman had a wisdom. One day, because Luqman had a wisdom, the other slaves were not happy with him. One day they accused Luqman, and came to the master and said, he ate some of the fruits that we went us to pick. He's the one who ate. So Luqman said, okay, things will going to be very clearly open in front of everybody. Give us all lukewarm water to drink, and make us all run till we vomit. So that's what he did. And what happened at the end of the process? When Luqman vomited, only water came out. But when they vomited, along with the water, the fruits came out. So آتَيْنَا الْلُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةِ. Wisdom. Who gives wisdom? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. But the idea for the human race is to be able to use it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this, another guidance that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then says there is a guidance of heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there is a guidance of heart that we give, that we talked about here. Then there is a guidance which is given through revelation. Now when the guidance comes through revelation, it also has three forms. The first form ulama say is called hidayatul ghayah, the open guidance for everybody. So وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا. That whatever laws we have given you, the people who are your leaders, your prophets, your scholars, are supposed to lead you by those laws. That's for everybody, the guidance. Now, when that guidance is placed, what happens? فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. You have a decision to make, to either accept it and believe, or not accept it and disbelieve. But you are responsible for making the decision, and then on the Day of Judgment we'll be responsible of giving our decision. Now the other one is hidayatul khassa, or hidayatul tariq. It is given to the believers. This is the later part of the Surah Al-Fatiha that we ask for. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, guide us on that right path. So that guidance of the right path is a second step of guidance that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that is still not the complete guidance. It is just a way to guidance. So what is the complete guidance? The rest of the Surah Al-Fatiha explains it. صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the path of those that were guided and you were happy with them. You were pleased with them. But not those غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ that were guided and then they were lost. We don't want to be among those people who were guided and were lost. We want to be among those people that were guided and stayed on the right path. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us different stages and has given us the thought process. Come to me and I shall guide you. وَالَّذِينَ اهْتَدَوْا زَادَهُمْ هُدًى. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides people and then increase their guidance. Increase their guidance makes them steadfast that they go and don't go anywhere. In Surah Bani Israel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ يَهْدِي لِلَّتِي هِيَ أَقْوَمْ. This Qur'an guides people. And it guides them on the right path, the truth path. Now comes the psychological aspect of humans as we think. We get our knowledge from three different sources. As a believer, I'll put the last source towards the end. But mainly as a human being, we get our guidance from two main sources. One is the external, and one is the internal, but internal is divided into two phases. I'll talk about the first phase, which is right over here at the top, the brain. So external are the five senses that we highly rely on. Majority of the information that is perceived by the brain is being transferred by the senses. The guy who is blind has a very limited information about seeing that gets transferred to the brain. That person cannot envision a lot of things that you and I can envision because we can see. The person who cannot hear has a speech problem because they've never heard a word. How can he speak a word? So speaking is reliant on hearing. Similarly, there are other things. If you can't touch, how can you feel the difference between a soft and hard and medium? So these senses tell you a lot of the things to your brain. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us 5 distinct senses to be able to touch, see, listen, taste, and smell. And none of those are replaceable. It's not like a person cannot hear, can basically counter it, balance it with seeing and smelling. You can't do that. So they all have their unique purpose. But none of them is capable to still understand, for example, the second ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. This book has no mistakes. Now none of the five senses can come to the conclusion on that. Because that's not their job is. Their job is very rational. If I can see, I'll believe. If I hear, I'll believe. If I touch, I'll believe. If I smell, I'll believe. If I taste, I'll believe. But if I cannot be provided with any of this, I'm not going to believe. And that's where a lot of the people stop. Because that's what they're relying on. But that's only one part of gaining knowledge. And that knowledge is not 100% true. It's very, very relevant to a person. Now you may take a bite of this food and say, oh my God, it's so yummy. But I'll take a bite and say, awful. What have you given me to eat? Taste. We all have tongue. We all have a taste. But it's very relevant. Somebody would go out and eat at a place in a local city who is familiar with Mediterranean food and will say, oh my God, the guy doesn't even know how to cook. And the person who has never been exposed to Mediterranean food may like it, because that's the first time he's getting the taste of it. So it's very relevant knowledge. You cannot fully rely on it. Maulana Rum, a big saint of the Persian language, he describes a story of 5 blind people who encountered an elephant. So somebody grabbed a tail, somebody grabbed a feet, somebody grabbed, different places. And to each one of them, the elephant was like that piece that the person grabbed. So one said the elephant is very wiggly like a tail. The other person said, no, it's like a pillar. Somebody else said something else. So because they had a very limited vision of that entity. So this is how a person, if only relies on these things, exterior senses, then the knowledge gets blocked over there. Needs to go to the next level. Now when we go to the next level, we look at the knowledge as being perceived by the internal sources. Where we talk about brain. Now brain is also in 5 stages. Number 1, it perceives knowledge through the 5 senses. Now that's only the stage 1. It perceives information through either of the 5 senses, and it draws a picture based on what it receives. That is one level. The second level is, it takes the picture and tries to visualize it. For example, when I say bag, if you're a learned person, you know it's B-A-G. But to an illiterate people, it's not a B-A-G. Or if I teach you a word of Russian, or if you teach me a word of Cyrillic, I won't be able to envision the word. I just know the word because you taught me. I don't even know how to write certain words in Albanian, but I can say them. I don't know what's the spelling of zote. Well, I can say it. Right? And I was quite surprised when I read some of the spellings, like, Ilyas with an X. So, things like that, I cannot envision. My brain has only perceived the first word, and that is Ilyas, and this is the person. I'm not picking on them, but, I'm just saying, So, I cannot envision anything more than that. Similarly, when Arabs look at my name and said, God, where did the Ain go? There is Saad. Why do you say Saad? Because to them, this is how it's perceived in the second level of the brain. Then comes the third level. In the third level, it takes that entity and object, which it drew in his mind, and tries to understand the qualities and properties of those entities. So now you have an idea that, okay, a chair has 4 legs, you sit on it, there's a back, that's chair. It doesn't matter what kind of chair I bring, you'll say this is chair. You're not going to confuse it with a stool which also has 4 legs. You're not going to confuse it with a table which also has 4 legs. You're not going to confuse it with an animal which has 4 legs. So this is the third stage of the brain where it is now trying to understand what it has perceived. Now after understanding, it stores that information in a long-term or short-term memory. Now it is able to perceive those ideas. Then the next stage comes, which is a very dangerous stage of the brain, where it tries to connect things. Now, because in the field of education we have to learn about a lot of these theories, and we bring in so many speakers who talk a lot of things. He says it happens sometimes in the human life if there is a link missing in the brain will try to link the closest enough piece with that piece, and will make you believe that this is basically the reality of the truth. Like the person said, my father could swear that he used to walk 2 miles every day to school. So when we went to his village, we literally drove around. It was not even half a mile. But the brain convinced, somebody told him it's 2 miles, it's 2 miles. And that's what they've been telling all their life. We used to walk to school 2 miles every day, each way. So that's what brain does sometimes. So that's why that portion of the brain is responsible of connecting the pieces. So in Honda in 2009, they created this robot, Osmo. And the Osmo was initially trained to do certain things like a human brain does. It would look at the staircase and would look at the top staircase, like the top point, the highest point. We'll look at each step and will mathematically calculate how many steps I have to take to reach from here to here, and what will be the height of each step. Then we'll take those many steps by itself to get to the top. They trained the Osmo that if somebody spat you with a water, you got to react by doing this to your head. Do that. If somebody extend hand, you got to shake it. If somebody plays a music, you got to dance at it. And if the music is faster, you got to dance faster. They trained this individual. This trained individual then went through an experiment process. Somebody from outside came and said, okay, Osmo, what is this? He said, this is a car. I said, okay, that's a car, well enough. He brought another toy car and asked Osmo, what is this? Osmo said, this is a car. He said, well, this is Mini Cooper. So Osmo is now analyzing the Mini Cooper, and he knows what a car is. And now he makes a distinction that this is a general property of a car, and this particular car is Mini Cooper. The guy takes it away. Now brings in the first car. Osmo says this is car. Brings in the Mini Cooper, says this is Mini Cooper. Because that's how humans think. That's how they're training Osmo. When they bring him chair, they bring him table, they bring him stool, he's able to differentiate between them because he looks at it and analyzes the properties. And if the property fits a chair, it's a chair. If it's a property that fits a table, it's a table. So the way human brain, that's why we studied human brain so that we can do the robotics that way. Like in the factory setup, you notice all these robotic arms that are moving? Somebody codes it. We program them to do that way. They're trained a certain way. They're extremely precise. Their tolerance level is far better than a human being. They make beautiful products when they came out. However, somebody needs to train them, and they have to take them through this process of transferring that external knowledge to an internal knowledge through these steps. So anyway, having said that, the internal knowledge is very reliant on the external sources. So if the information coming in is wrong, the information perceived is wrong. If I give you this book and say, this is soft cover, right from the beginning, if I tell you this is soft cover, all your life, your brain is, this is soft. If somebody says, this is hard, this is soft, you'll say, no, this is soft. I don't know what that is. So your internals is extremely reliant on your external. Recently, I happened to go into the research of EI, not AI. AI is artificial intelligence. EI is emotional intelligence. We're doing tremendous amount of work on emotional intelligence these days. People are actually doing their PhDs, and I personally know people who are doing PhDs in emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is pretty much like, okay, everybody has different personalities. Everybody has different needs. Everybody behaves differently in different emotions. So how can I understand the other person's emotions And how can I understand my emotions and improve the quality of social contact? So it's basically based on 5 tenets. Number 1 is called self-awareness. A person has to be self-aware about their individuals. What kind of a person I am? How do I feel? How do I perceive things? And to always not let your emotions overcome your decisions. Never let your emotions overcome your decisions. That's a step 1, self-awareness. Then there's self-regulation. I have to always regulate myself. If I'm angry, I should be able to control it before I express it. Self-regulate. I need to regulate myself. Motivation. I should be able to take challenges. Should be able to perceive them. And not get demotivated, because that's important for me. Then I need to have empathy. What is empathy? Empathy is being able to understand somebody. A lot of the people have sympathy, means if they've gone through an emotion, they will understand the emotion. But if they've never gone through that emotion, they'll not be able to understand the emotion. So if somebody is suffering because they have never suffered, they don't realize what suffering is. But empathy says, no, you got to realize that the person's emotion without the other person telling you. It's pretty much like your son comes back from school. The son gets to an age, when you ask him, what do you do in the school for 8 hours? He says nothing. Every day he tells you he did nothing for 8 hours. And it goes on every day for a week, for months. And then he graduates from high school, he goes into university and college, and you still ask him, the response is the same. He becomes a father, now he gets the same treatment from his son, and he has no idea how to respond to that situation when he was doing the same to his father. So what is that nothing? Now you need to understand and break the barrier through empathy, because what is he going through in his head? Is he scared that if I tell him everything that I went through in my school life, he's going to get upset about it? Or something else is going in his head, that he doesn't want to talk to me. He's preoccupied with something. What is he feeling? And then it comes the last stage, it's called social skills. How can I develop this skill in me? Now this is the part I love. Become selfless to an extent that my success is not the only definition of success. I got to take the people with me and also make them succeed. I got to take my whole team and let's succeed together. So individual success takes a back seat in front of the collective success, because now multiple people will succeed. So these are the 5 main tenets of emotional intelligence. And a lot of work is being done on it, because now it is defined. We're still working on how to achieve it. Because it's not easy to achieve, because everybody thinks differently. Everybody is different. A person placed in the United States of America behaves very differently than a person in Africa, or person in Asia, or person in Europe, person in Australia. Even Australians do not behave the same as New Zealand people. They're the same continent right next to each other. The thought processes are different. You take a person from New York, thinks very different than a person from here. Or a person from Texas, or California. How to break emotional intelligence barriers. So it's a great amount of work is being done in this area. A great field to at least study and improve oneself. So I thought I was going to talk about this study as I ran into it and study on a daily basis. But anyway, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this ultimate truth, that do not rely on your internal and external things alone. There's another thing that I've given you. Now that another thing is very complicated, I'm not going to go into that. That's also at 5 stages. I'll give you the names of the 5 stages, so I'm only going to talk briefly about the first 2. One is your heart. We're out of the brain now. What is your heart? What is your soul? And the other 3 stages talk about those internal layers that a person goes through, and only a person can experience, but it's hard to reflect upon. You cannot transfer over your guidance. It's sometimes very hard to transfer over some knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has opened it for you. Everybody can do that. Sometimes the knowledge is not transferable 100%. It's just like for you alone. It may not even apply for the other person. So when we try to force that application, it doesn't place well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given several different layers right within. So Imam Ghazali puts it very beautifully. In Al-Munqadh min al-Dalal, he says, وَرَاءَ الْعَقْلِ طُورٌ آخَرٌ. Beyond your mental capability, there are another ground. تَنْفَتِحُ فِيهِ عَيْنٌ أُخْرَى. There is another eye which is in your heart that opens up to that reality. That there is a basira, which is your vision that you see through your eyes, and then there is a basara, which is inside you, which looked at things with an open eye. Even when this is gone, that is open. Look at the companion of the Prophet Muhammad who was blind, Abdullah ibn Maktoum. But he was guided. His blindness didn't stop him from getting guided. In fact, he's being mentioned in the Quran, عَبَسَ وَتَوَلَّ أَنْ جَاءَهُ الْأَعْمَى. When a blind man came to you, O Prophet. So that's a different kind of eye. And he ends this paragraph in the following words, Al-aql, your intelligence, ma'dhulun anha. The knowledge perceived by this, your intelligence is not able to do that. Can't even get close to it. Because you're still relying on what? Your exterior information. Your interior information is completely relying only on exterior information, and anything that you cannot perceive, you're denying it. So with that approach, you can never get to the truth. You have to perceive it at the level of your heart. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sums it beautifully in Surah Al-Mulk. On the Day of Judgment, when the culprits will going to be brought forth, they will talk about all three stages. The first statement they're going to say, then when the angels will ask them, didn't a warner come to you? وَقَالُوا, and they will say, لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ. If we would have listened, it's your exterior sense. أَوْ نَعْقِلْ, if we would have thought about what we have listened. Still they're talking about the knowledge perceived from exterior sources to their interior sources. مَا كُنَّا فِي أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. We think then we would not have been among the people of the Jahannam. But they're still relying on their interior and exterior sources. Then right away they go to the third form. فَاعْتَرَفُوا بِذَنْبِهِمْ. They will right away accept the claims that were made against them of the sins. And where does the acceptance comes from? Here. So the idea that is getting expressed here is what they perceived, they relied on it. Now they're still banking on the same information. What if what we have perceived, we would have accepted it then we would not have to accept this reality that we are in right now. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala right away in the next ayah talks about how believers take it. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ. The believers are those who fear their Lord. The fear doesn't stay here. The fear does not come from external sources. What is fear? Fear of accountability. There's a fear of unknown. A believer is not in a fear of unknown. A believer is in a fear of accountability. Maliki yawmiddin. There's going to be a day when I'll be presented in front of my Lord. I will be answerable for the deeds that I have done. What will I going to do that day? So that fear is there. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ. And what is the condition of that fear? بِالْغَيْبِ. Nobody watches them, they still have that feeling. Anybody watches them, they still have that feeling. These are the people, لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةٌ وَأَجْرٌ كَبِيرٌ. These are the people that will be forgiven and will going to be granted higher places in Jannah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about all these three states and said, do not completely rely on your knowledge. Why? Because in Surah Al-Isra, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. We've only given you a little bit of a knowledge. That's all we gave you. Do not rely on your knowledge alone for guidance. You'll not be guided if you just think that I can perceive it all. And I can make the judgments based on what I perceive. You will never be able to get to the absolute truth. Because the absolute truth lies with me and me alone. So with this, we're going to briefly move into the concept of Al-Alameen. And we're going to continue this in a little bit more detail next time. I've been introducing you, and I've stopped doing that for some time. We're going to introduce again. There is a field in Arabic called Ilm al-Ishtiqaq, the etymology, the root words. And I'm going to bring that field again here, just a little bit, for us to be able to understand the word Alameen. Alameen by nature is plural. Plural. The singular is alam, which is also a plural. Okay? Just like in English, there's a word called people. There is no singular to people, it's people. Like in Arabic, an-nas. An-nas is like for people, for a group of people. There is no singular to that word. So this word is a plural. It has a singular, but that singular is also a plural by nature. So alam. So in Al-Mufradat, which is a book of dictionary that I've always brought forth in terms of etymology, Al-alamu ismun lima yu'lamu bihi. Alam is a noun by which you try to know and understand something. That's alam. That's the definition of an alam in the books of Arabic. So who are we trying to know? The Creator. There is another definition, which also comes in the book of Arabic. Al-alamu mushtaq min al-alama. It comes from the word which means signs. Who is it signed for? Ala wujudil khaliq, the one who created it. So when you look at a flower, it's a very complicated architecture. How does all sunflowers look almost the same? It just never happens a sunflower feels like today I'm going to come up like a rose. You know? Or rose feels like today I'm not going to smell good because this guy doesn't water me every day. It doesn't happen. They don't think like that. There are certain properties and attributes they have to come up with. And they're the clear sign that there is a Creator who has given me certain things that I have to live by. I have to give those characteristics outwards. So in this, ulama have come up with two different kinds of alam. There is an existence called al-wajib. It's a must existence. And that is of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then there is another existence called al-mumkin. That means a possibility of existence. And that is only for the creators of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are the two different entities. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not understandable by either of the interior or exterior means. In order to accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to come through the doors of acceptance. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I am the Rabb, you have to accept it. He's the Rabb. He says, I am the Creator, you have to accept it. He's the Creator. So that takes a totally different level of interaction. And this is where the Fir'aun was baffled. When Musa alayhi salam came to Fir'aun in Surah Al-Shu'ara, notice the words here. What were the words before? That we have come from your Rabb. Now, Musa alayhi salam says, Inna Rasulu Rabbil Alameen. We are the messenger from the Rabb of Alameen. And he continues and says, An arsil ma'ana bani Israel. Send with us the children of Israel. Same idea. And Fir'aun right away does not question the Rabb. Fir'aun rather tries to prove to Moses, I am the Rabb. And tells him, قَالَ أَلَمْ نُرَبِّكَ فِينَا وَلِيدًا. Oh, you were a little baby when you came to me. I took care of you. What Rabb are you talking about? And I take care of all these people. وَلَبِثْتَ فِينَا مِنْ عُمْرِكَ سِنِينَ. You lived with us for years. After years, we took care of you. What this new idea you're bringing forth? وَفَعَلْتَ فَعَلْتَكَ الَّتِي فَعَلْتَ وَأَنْتَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. Oh Moses, you killed the man. You killed it. Forget about it. I'm the Rabb. I forgive you. And you are being unthankful. أَنْتَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. Kafirin means here that you're being unthankful to me. I'm the Rabb. And then Moses said, فَعَلْتُهَا إِذَنْ وَأَنَا مِنَ الضَّالِّينَ. I did it and I didn't know any better back then. And I didn't do it purposely. It just happened. Who dies with a punch or a slap? It was never meant to kill a person. And فَفَرَرْتُ مِنْكُمْ لَمَّا خِفْتُكُمْ. So and I ran away from here because I was afraid of you. فَوَهَبَ لِي رَبِّي حُكْمًا وَجَعَلْنِي مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. So my Lord gave me wisdom and make me a prophet. So Fir'aun, what kind of Rabb are you that I can run away from you? And you can't come after me and catch me for 10 years, and I've come back willfully. And you're trying to show me that you are my Rabb? And the conversation continued. And Moses encountered his conversation and said, وَتِلْكَ نِعْمَةٌ تَمُنُّهَا عَلَىٰ أَنْ عَبَدْتَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ. Is this the kind of Rabb that you're claiming to be a Rabb, that you need a bunch of people to be enslaved unlawfully and willfully in your nation, the children of Israel, and make them work for you? Is this the kind of Rabb that you're trying to talk about and you're trying to counter blessings on me? Now Firaun has no answer. So Moses brought forth a concept of Rabb that he was not familiar with. Now he questions Moses and said, قَالَ فِرْعَوْنُ وَمَا رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Moses, then what is Rabbul Alameen? Earlier on he questions, وَمَا رَبُّكُمَا يَا مُوسَى. Who is your Rabb, ya Moses? Now he says, what is Rabbul Alameen? I don't understand. Now Moses explaining Rabbul Alameen. He says, رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا. Whatever is in the heavens and in the earth and whatever is in between them. رَبُّكُمْ وَرَبُّ آبَائِكُمْ وَالْأَوَّلِينَ. Your Rabb and the Rabb of your forefathers. رَبُّ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا. The Rabb of the east and the west and whatever is in between them. Whatever the sun rises and falls on. إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. Only if you think. Really you think you are the Rabb? So that's where the idea of Rabbul Alameen was brought in forth of the Fir'aun by the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the name of Moses. So he was given the definition of Rabb. He was given the definition of Rabbul Alameen. Now inshaAllah ta'ala next time we're going to take this idea of Rabbul Alameen and we're going to progress with this idea of Rabbul Alameen, because we need to also understand when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam that we have sent you as a mercy for Rahmatul lil Alameen. So when you understand the word Alameen, you will be able to understand His mercy. And also the word Alameen does not come in the same context all over the Quran. It comes in different capacities in different places. Sometimes it is bounded by space and time. Sometimes it is not bounded by space and time. So we're going to be looking at some of those examples as we go along. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين.